As a general rule, I find it simple and comforting to be a reasonably objective person who relies on verifiable information and data to formulate opinions. But every once in a while, this does become a pain in the ass. Case in point, our month-long visit to Paris this past year. Like most Americans, I was expecting, and I'll just say hoping, to arrive in Paris and feel smug at the observation that American society is vastly superior to French society. I expected to find a bunch of mean-spirited, self-absorbed people slowly losing influence in the world and taking every opportunity to lash out at the growing relative strength of the United States. Sadly, for my psyche, I did not find this. What I found was a lot of normal, mostly friendly people going about their day-to-day lives, happy to help a stranger in need. Here's the most annoying observation I had while I was there. Paris today is better than any American city I have been to in the past decade, and I've been to a lot. It's clean and safe, and people are friendly and helpful, and there's a complete lack of the ridiculous woke messaging you see in so many United States cities today, with plus-size models staring down at you from every single billboard. This kind of thing was absolutely nowhere to be found. Now, just a quick observation and some advice. If you're an idiot, you probably should not go to Paris. This woman is an idiot. Anybody who can have their cell phone pickpocketed 6 times is an idiot, and if I have to explain why, you probably should not go to Paris. Now, if you try really hard, you too can be the victim of a crime, but it takes quite a bit of effort and stupidity. But anyway, in France, there seems to have been a general realization that, shocker, history actually happened. That there are things that happen in the history of various countries that would not be acceptable today, not to anyone. But that does not mean that it didn't happen. And it doesn't mean that they are not important parts of the fabric of what made the country what it is today. There seems to be absolutely no interest in erasing, attacking, and censoring history in the way that is happening so often here today. Staying in Paris for a month was figuratively and literally a breath of fresh air. I'm not a big fan of mandated electric vehicles, but it's nice to walk around a city where there's no noise, no fumes, and just cars driving slowly around. It's nice. There's a saying that Germans eat to live and the French live to eat. And I can see why. Eating food in Paris is a completely different experience than you get in Germany or here in the United States. You get your bread at the bread store, you get your fish at the fish store, you get your fruit at a fruit store, etc. And in each case, the quality metric is reversed from what you experience here. Here, when you get like a really excellent batch of strawberries, for example, it's a pleasant surprise. There, every bunch of strawberries is excellent, and it's a surprise when you get a mediocre one. I myself am not a big food fanatic, but I have to tell you, without exaggeration, this was a quality of life improvement. Now, as far as I can tell, the French seem to have at some point in the past hit bottom on their drive towards socialism. They seem to have realized that real socialism doesn't work. Now, they're still hanging on to its vestiges, to be sure. But you don't, at least in my experience, hear a lot of talk about moving toward a pure socialist state. Alarmingly, you do hear a lot of that here in the United States, almost exclusively from people who know absolutely nothing about socialism. Most people have heard about the garbage strikes that happened in Paris this past spring. Now, fortunately for us, they were resolved shortly before we got there. But upon arriving, I learned that unlike many American cities, the entirety of Paris is not covered by public sector garbage collectors. Paris is split up into what they call, I think, arrondissements or arrondissements or something. Sections. The odd-numbered sections are covered by public unions. The even-numbered sections are covered by private trash collectors. Now, during the strike, it was painfully obvious to those living in the areas with private collection, which was clean as a whistle, that their neighbors were getting screwed, and vice versa. This certainly was a factor in the eventual ending of the strike. That, along with the fact that the French president said, quite plainly, that if the public workers did not start picking up the trash, he would put them in jail. Now, obviously, I'm not a big fan of that kind of authoritarian approach. I'd rather be able to just fire bad workers. But if you're going all the way with authoritarian public unions, go all the way. And he did. In 3 days, all the trash was gone. Try accomplishing that in New York City. Now, there are a lot of caveats to this generally positive review of Paris and France in general. France remains an absolutely horrible place to do business. The French are drowning in red tape, strangled by rules and regulations that make even the simplest business ventures nearly impossible to accomplish. There's too much unrestrained immigration there, too. The French acceptance of an enormous welfare state, much like in Sweden, is a recipe for long-term decline. And far too many of the French youth are every bit as stupid as the average youth elsewhere in the world. While we were there, they were protesting a 2-year increase from 57 to 59 for the retirement age of sanitation workers. This despite the fact that the 57-year-old retirement age is completely financially unsustainable. I heard someone quite accurately say that the French were protesting against math. But annoyingly, quite annoyingly, we all had a great time in Paris. It's great to finally go to a city where self-loathing is at a minimum. And it's nice to know you can still find that somewhere in the world.